That's why I'm on YouTube. Daniel back here for another video. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Daniel. I help people use nutrition with what I've learned over the past 8 years, reversing my psoriasis and living drug-free in order to reach their peak self, live non-dependent on the healthcare system and doctors, and just become their own superhero. So for this video, I wanted to basically touch on something that I was thinking about today, or actually something I went through, which was obviously trying to hit my daily habits. So one of them is 7,000 steps minimum. This is something just for overall fitness that I've got accustomed to, and also with digestion, it helps after every meal. So I usually do 2 meals, lunch and dinner. So I try to do like a 50-minute walk after, just like let everything digest. Also, it helps with creativity, and you're able to come back refreshed. So if you're working, you come back refreshed. You're able to get things going. And for me personally, I also have like the ability to be at peace when I'm sitting. So if I have a meal, I don't sit directly after. For a long time, I just feel like fat. I just feel like I have to like earn sitting down after walking steps. This is just something that I've basically implemented or implanted in my mind probably this past year with the steps. I just found like steps are super important with digestion and being able to really get things moving. Obviously, like when you sleep, it slows down your digestion by like I think like 3 times as opposed to like staying awake. And obviously, when you walk, it like doubles the digestion time. So yeah, basically not double. Sorry, it lowers it by twice as much. But anyways, the point is basically today I had my second round of burpees, which I do during the day. I had my meal right after, and then essentially it was a pretty big meal. So I was just having thoughts of like just not going on the walk. I had to do like 4,000 steps. I was at 4,000. I needed like usually 10,000 is the goal. Right now I'm just trying to do 7,000 minimum because I have other habits I'm trying to reach. And I got to 8,000, but essentially before that I was like not having it. Every ounce of my body was like don't do it. Just like stay. You did the burpees before. I did the burpees like an hour before. I did like 120 on top of a workout before that. So everything was telling me like just don't do it. But essentially what made me push me over the edge was like having the negative consequence of not doing it like in the future. So essentially it doesn't make realistic sense in the moment. So basically just the image that came to me was just like me having a belly, which makes no sense because obviously I just mentioned my habits in terms of working out. How I eat as well is very tracked and restricted, and also just my habits of walking every day. But I mean, like putting this unrealistic but like super negative consequence like instantly like implants in my mind just like pushed me over the edge, and just using that pain is like what caused me to do it. And essentially what I want to share with you is that you have to more or less begin to use pain in these moments and not relying on pleasure, because pleasure will not push you over the edge like pain will. Pain is what people will avoid as opposed to chasing pleasure. And this is always the case. You're always looking to avoid something painful. If I put you on hot coals and make you walk across hot coals on the floor, you'll be less likely to do that and walk faster than if I put, I don't know, ice cream or something of a treat at the other side of it, and you have to do it. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure if that really made sense, but essentially what I'm trying to say is that you will always avoid pain and like basically act faster, moving away from pain as opposed to like going for pleasure. It's just something that's innate in every person. You don't want to feel pain. You want to just feel basically okay, comfortable in a situation, not like something that's like tearing at you or like something that's just gnawing at you. Like it's just you don't want that discomfort of it. And obviously with pleasure, it's something that's like a euphoric feeling, but it's something that you can do without, but you can't do without not being in pain. So if I'm just like doing something like maybe like pinching you, or something that's just uncomfortable over a prolonged period of time, you won't stay in that situation long enough. So what I want you to begin to do then is right now, if you're in a place where you're trying to pick up the habits of healing, eating right, staying away from foods, maybe starting to stay away from certain environments, certain restaurants, stuff like that you were doing beforehand, you have to begin to use the pain principle and understand like you can do it as extreme as me. I recommend that just because it would just help you to instantly like just be like, okay, like fuck this, I'm gonna do what I have to do. But essentially just understanding that you have to begin to use worst case scenarios when best case scenarios aren't compelling enough. So some people are able to do it. Like some people can do basically like short-term, very short-term goals, like less than 3 months, maybe like a month, a couple of weeks, and be like, okay, in 2 weeks I'm going to do this. So if I do these actions, I get this like prize, right? So they're able to do that. But for me, it's always been basically, I would say the opposite, and I think this helps a lot of people as well. People I talk to is like, you see ultra successful people is like basically, do it or die, and that's essentially dying is, you know, the complete opposite of like the result you want. And if more or less, if that's what I think they mean is like, I'd rather run these, 1,000 miles and know that, I'm going to be in good shape or like mentally disciplined, as opposed to like, the opposite, which is not doing it. And like, they just go really far left and be like, okay, just like creating the worst possible case scenario and then just move themselves away from that. So they think of like that image of them not doing the extreme of one thing, and they just think the extreme of like the extreme consequence of not doing it, even though it doesn't make sense for the situation, but they just put themselves in that place and like, okay, rather, they're like running away from it, right? So it's like putting gas on the fire, but it's basically just like putting like, just gasoline, but from below you, right? As opposed to like something that's pulling you up. So I think this is something you have to begin to do, especially in the beginning. So it's going to be the hardest in the beginning, but you have to begin to use pain. When it becomes more, you could say autopilot, you can start to use pleasure a bit more because you're kind of more away from the pain. But in the beginning, you have to really use pain. This is something that's going to help you. Trying to, like I said, just make a worst case scenario right now. Let's say, you're in a position where you've basically, I would say you're basically not depending, like you're basically floating. So it's like you're not, you're in a place where you're trying to detach from your old habits, but you're like in a purgatory where you're like not there yet, but you're still in the middle. So essentially it's like you have to start to use like, negative thinking, not negative thinking, but negative consequence thinking to like propel you away from where you're trying not to be, right? So it's always like just pushing you enough always. And then just, with time, your standard will start to increase. So your negative consequence will be less extreme, but, in wherever you're at, it'll be more extreme than that, if that makes sense. So like, when you're starting out, your extreme is like, I don't want to like have injections maybe, but then once you get to a certain level, you'd be like, I don't want to take creams. I'm just using this example like for skin, for autoimmune conditions. But after that, it could be, I don't want to be scratching, like, you know what I mean? Like once you start to raise where you're at and basically your standards, like your standard of negative consequence will also raise. But I mean, it's still painful enough for you to keep pushing and pushing. So your floor is always going to raise, and such as basically your standard. So your negative standard is going to increase, but it's still negative enough where you don't want to be there. So essentially, start to use that. I know it won't make that much sense, but I mean, if you start to do it and try to visualize like basically a worst case scenario of you not doing an action, it could be a small action. Like I said, for me, it was not walking and just making worst case scenarios. Okay, I'm gonna be a fat ass if I don't walk. But I mean, if you up putting on a cream, or like you trying to eat maybe a chocolate that it's gonna like just cause a whole bunch of inflammation and bad stuff for your gut, you can just be like, if I do this long enough, I'm gonna be like full of inflammation, or like if you have a skin disease, I'm gonna be full of plaques if I eat this one chocolate. So it's just like it scares you and like it starts you, okay, no, I'm not gonna do that. So basically that's the thinking. I think that's helped me to like really propel past what I thought I can do, because in the beginning, like I said, I was always seeking pleasure with food, but then when I realized that there's a negative to what I'm doing, I just basically emphasize the negative, and that just helped me to get past where I thought I could be. So hope this video helps you. Like I said, I help you with basically the mindset behind nutrition and getting them to use it as efficiently as possible. So if you want to connect with me, I'll put my Instagram below. Also comment below what mental strategies you use to basically help you make the right decisions or the right daily habits you have to do. Mine, like I said, is negative consequence thinking, but yours could be something else. Maybe involving other people in a way, like, if I don't do this, my family might die, or like, some kind of worst case scenario, or maybe it's something positive. I mean, everyone works differently, so we'd like to know yours, what has helped you. And yeah, if you like the video, like and subscribe. More will be coming. And in the meantime, keep killing it.